Quite a while ago, I went through all 18 chapters of the Bhagavad Gita, and I carefully selected the 5 most important verses on Bhakti, devotion. I picked verses that contained the essence of Sri Krishna's teachings, but that essence can easily get diluted or watered down, so to speak, if I give a long lecture on each verse to fully explain it according to the teachings of Advaita Vedanta. So, in this video, I'll try to explain each verse as briefly as possible, just enough to extract the wonderful fragrance of Sri Krishna's teachings without elaborating on it too much. If you want to study these verses from a more Vedantic standpoint, you can watch my classes on the Bhagavad Gita. I'll leave a link below. Before we begin, let me remind you about an important point we discussed in the first video of this series. In the Bhagavad Gita, Sri Krishna speaks from several different standpoints, in different roles. Sometimes he speaks as Arjuna's friend and mentor. Sometimes he speaks as an avatara, the 8th incarnation of Lord Vishnu. Elsewhere, he speaks from the standpoint of Brahman, absolute reality, or from the standpoint of Atma, pure consciousness. But when he talks about bhakti, Sri Krishna mostly speaks from the perspective of Ishvara, the supreme being, whose infinite power and intelligence created the entire world and continually sustains it. Ishvara is manifest in the universe as its intelligent order, as the laws of nature, including the laws of karma and the principle of dharma, righteousness. In Chapter 1, Arjuna sees that many of his beloved family members are standing on both sides of the battlefield, ready for war. And then he suddenly realizes that most of them are likely to die in that war. As a result, he suffers an emotional breakdown, what we today call a panic attack, as we discussed in the previous video. Then, at the beginning of Chapter 2, Arjuna, completely overwhelmed by his emotions, pleads for Sri Krishna's guidance. Karpanya doshopahata svabhavaha prachami tvam dharma sammuda chetaha yachreyasyan nishchitam bruhitan me Shishyasteham shadhi mam tvam prapannam. Arjuna admits here that he has suffered an emotional breakdown by saying that his swabhava, his inner nature, his heart or mind, is karpanya dosha upahata. It is overcome by weakness, by feelings of helplessness, and by depression. Arjuna deeply grieves the imminent deaths of his loved ones. He also admits that his chetas, his mind, his intellect, is dharma sammuddha, completely confused about dharma, righteousness. Arjuna doesn't know if it's better to fulfill his sacred duty as a warrior in combat, or if it's better to abandon the battlefield and avoid fighting against his own relatives. Arjuna not only admits to his emotional breakdown, but he also acknowledges the fact that he doesn't know what to do. For a mighty warrior like Arjuna to disclose his weakness and confusion like that shows his great honesty and integrity. Many people, especially men, are reluctant to admit their shortcomings. largely because they're afraid of being judged harshly by others. But Sri Krishna is not like the judgmental God of the Bible. He is Arjuna's friend and mentor. Sri Krishna wants to help Arjuna and all his devotees, rather than judging them for their deeds and misdeeds. Arjuna continues, Prachami tvam, I ask you, O Krishna, yat shreyas yat, what is best? What should I do? Should I stay and fight, or should I leave the battlefield? Nishchitam bruhi tanme, please tell me that clearly. Having recognized his own helplessness, Arjuna begs for advice. He pleads for guidance, saying, Shishya te aham, I am your student, your dedicated disciple. Shadhi mam, teach me, lead me. Help me discern the correct path of dharma in this ridiculously complicated situation. Then Arjuna concludes, Tvam prapannam, I fall at your holy feet. I completely surrender myself to you, and I'm ready to follow your advice, whatever it might be. In this verse, Arjuna demonstrates the ideal attitude of a bhakta, a devotee. Arjuna opens his heart to Sri Krishna, holding nothing back. He admits his own confusion and weakness, and he seeks Sri Krishna's help. But notice here that Arjuna does not ask Sri Krishna to somehow miraculously prevent the war from breaking out. Nor does he ask Sri Krishna to protect all his loved ones and save them from being killed on the battlefield. Instead, Arjuna simply asks, tell me what is best. Arjuna's approach here is significant because quite often people pray for very specific things, like getting a particular job, or getting a promotion, or getting married, and so on. A person might even pray for their 95-year-old father who has been hospitalized with advanced terminal cancer to somehow recover and live on. But do we know for sure what is really best in each situation, given the mind-boggling complexity of our lives and that of our loved ones? So instead of praying for something specific, maybe it's better to do what Arjuna does. That is, to pray for what is best. That means to put your trust in the divine intelligence that created the world, and to ask for blessings, not necessarily for what you want, but for what you truly need. The fact is, different people pray in different ways. Young students pray for good grades. Newly married couples pray for the birth of a healthy child. But those who really understand Sri Krishna's teachings here, they usually pray like Arjuna does. They pray for guidance. They pray for the wisdom and inner strength to choose the right course of action and stay on the path of dharma. According to Sri Krishna, staying on the path of dharma is central to the practice of bhakti. In other words, to act in accordance with dharma is indeed an act of great devotion. Sri Krishna describes this in the 3rd chapter, the chapter on Karma Yoga. Mai sarvani karmani sanyasya dhyatma chetasa nirashir nirmamo bhutva yudhyasva vigata jvaraha. Sarvani karmani, all your deeds, everything you do. Mayi sanyasya, you should give them to me. You should dedicate your deeds to me, to Sri Krishna. Before performing a deed, many people say the prayer, Sri Krishnarpanam astu. May this deed be an arpana, an offering to Sri Krishna. But what does it actually mean to offer or dedicate a deed to Sri Krishna? If a bank robber says, Sri Krishnarpanamastu, as he enters a bank to rob it, does that change anything? Is it even a prayer? Really speaking, to dedicate your deeds to God, to offer your deeds to Ishvara, means to act in accordance with dharma. Why? Well, the word dharma comes from a Sanskrit root meaning to hold, to support or sustain. So, dharma is actually an aspect of the divine intelligence that sustains the world and enables all living things to grow and thrive. People grow intellectually to improve the quality of life. People grow emotionally to become more compassionate, more kind and understanding. People grow spiritually to discover the divinity hidden inside themselves. Anything that contributes to a person's growth is considered dharmic, and anything that obstructs that growth is considered adharmic. So, by following the path of dharma, you act in conformance with the divine intelligence that sustains the entire universe. That is, your dharmic deeds contribute to the intellectual, emotional, and spiritual growth of yourself and others. The divine intelligence that sustains the world can loosely be understood as God's will, Ishvara's will, even though Ishvara's will is nothing at all like the will of a human being. Metaphorically, it is Ishvara's will that the planets orbit the sun. It is Ishvara's will that electrons orbit their respective nuclei. In this way, we can say it is Ishvara's will that human beings follow dharma by fulfilling their duties. So, to follow dharma is to act in accordance with Ishvara's will. But unlike planets and electrons, you are endowed with free will. You can choose whether or not to follow dharma. Obviously, for the practice of bhakti, you must choose to follow dharma. But that choice depends on a particular inclination or commitment that Sri Krishna calls here adhyatma chetas, a spiritual attitude. Basically, this is the attitude of karma yoga, which we will discuss in the next video of this series. Here, Sri Krishna describes the attitude of karma yoga in the second half of the verse. Nirashihi nirmamaha bhutva. You have to become completely free from selfish desires and attachments. Strong desires can easily drag you away from the path of dharma. In the practice of both bhakti and karma yoga, you have to use your power of free will to resist those desires and act instead according to Ishvara's will. Arjuna himself has a strong desire to avoid fighting in the terrible war that's about to begin. But if he fails to fight, he will not be acting in accordance with Ishvara's will. He will not be following the path of dharma. Please remember that the war was actually fought not to regain the kingdom, but to restore dharma. That means if Arjuna doesn't fight, the forces of adharma will prevail, and that will result in consequences far worse than the consequences of the war itself. So, Sri Krishna encourages Arjuna, Yudhyasva. O Arjuna, you must fight. You must fulfill your duty here on the battlefield. But you should do so vigata jwaraha, without inner conflict, without doubt and confusion about what is best. With the help of Sri Krishna's teachings, Arjuna can fight with a clear conscience, knowing that he is indeed following the path of dharma. Now, suppose you were in Arjuna's terrible situation there on the battlefield. It's very likely that you might think, but if I fight, what will happen to my family members? It's natural to worry about the future like that. Yet, you have to admit that worry is a complete waste of mental energy. To plan properly for the future is crucial, but to worry about something that's already been decided accomplishes nothing whatsoever. So, in chapter 9, Sri Krishna tells Arjuna not to worry, because if he consistently follows Ishvara's will by staying on the path of dharma, then there is nothing to worry about. Ananyas chintayanto mam ye jana paryupasate tesham nityabhiyuktanam yogakshemam vahamyaham. In the second line, ye janaha, those people who paryupasate mam, people who are devoted to me, people who worship Sri Krishna. How should they worship him? Ananya chintayantaha, by continually thinking about Sri Krishna, by fixing their minds on him. One of the most important principles of bhakti that Sri Krishna teaches here is that prayer and worship should not be confined to the times when you sit in front of an altar or when you visit a sacred temple. Prayer and worship should be performed throughout the day, while you are engaged in your regular activities. That's the basic idea of karma yoga, which is a practice that transforms ordinary tasks into forms of prayer and worship. In this context, to continually worship Lord Krishna means to constantly conform to Ishvara's will by following the path of dharma. For example, you make countless decisions each day, like, should I do this or that? Should I stay here or go there? Suppose, before you make each of those decisions, you take a moment to briefly reflect on which choice would be more dharmic, which choice would be more in accordance with Ishvara's will. This is an excellent example of how you can worship Sri Krishna constantly. In the second half of the verse, Sri Krishna assures his devotees, Tesham nitya abhiyuktanam, for all those who are constantly devoted to me, for those who worship me by always following the path of dharma, for those devotees, yogakshema vahami aham, I support them. I take care of their yoga kshema. Here, yoga means getting what you need, and kshema means preserving what you already have. The fact that Sri Krishna will take care of everything if you stay on the path of dharma doesn't mean that you don't need to do anything at all. You still have to fulfill all your duties. Only then will you be supported. The point here is that if you consistently follow the path of dharma, then you don't need to worry about the future. You can put your trust in Ishvara's divine intelligence, knowing that you have done your best in carrying out all your responsibilities. It's important to note here that Sri Krishna describes a practice of bhakti not as performing rituals or making offerings in a temple, but instead, the practice of bhakti is to live with a prayerful attitude, the attitude of wanting to conform to Ishvara's will by following the path of dharma. For Sri Krishna, bhakti is not about rituals and temples, it's about how you live. It's about your perspective on life. He describes that perspective at the end of chapter 6. Yo mam pashyati sarvatra sarvam cha mai pashyati tasyaham na pranashyami sacha me na pranashyati. Yaha mam pashyati sarvatra. A person who sees me everywhere. That is, someone who sees divinity present not just inside a temple, but inside every person, every being. That divinity as the sacred essence of the entire creation, with all its creatures, plants, trees, and mountains. In addition to seeing Sri Krishna everywhere, sarvam cha mai pashyati. Such a person also sees everything in me, in Sri Krishna. What does that mean, to see everything in Sri Krishna? It means to see the entire universe as a divine manifestation of Ishvara. Here's a helpful metaphor. When milk is made into yogurt or ghee, the essence of milk remains present in those products. So too, when Ishvara becomes manifest as the entire world, the essence or divinity of Ishvara remains present throughout the universe. This particular teaching of Sri Krishna completely obliterates the separation or division we often make between secular and sacred, between spiritual and worldly, between divine and mundane. Unfortunately, this kind of division allows some people to judge or look down on others, especially those who seem less spiritual or less pious than they are. This unnecessary division also prevents people from seeing the physical world itself as being sacred. And that contributes to environmental harm, to problems ranging from trash in the streets to life-threatening global warming. For Sri Krishna, bhakti is devotion to Ishvara in all his manifestations, not just to Sri Krishna himself as an avatara of Lord Vishnu. In the second half of the verse, tasya, for a person who sees Sri Krishna in everything and sees everything in Sri Krishna, for such a person, aham na pranashyami. I am never absent. I am never remote. That means Sri Krishna is always present, here, now, everywhere. Not only that, sahacha, such a person, me na pranashyati, is never away from me, never distant, never forgotten, never alone. What a lovely verse. It describes so beautifully the wonderful bhava or devotional feeling that you can gradually develop with the help of Sri Krishna's teachings in the Bhagavad Gita. Now, we come to the last of our 5 essential verses on bhakti. In the final chapter of the Gita, Sri Krishna gives some very simple but powerful instructions on how to develop your devotional feelings, how to cultivate bhakti. Manmana bhava mad bhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru mame vaishyasi satyam te pratijane priyosi me. Manmanas bhava, fix your mind on me. Madbhaktaha bhava, be devoted to me. Madhyaji bhava, worship me. Offer yourself to me. Offer your deeds to me. And mam namaskuru, bow to me. Seek refuge at my feet. Here, Sri Krishna's words seem unusually intimate, extremely personal, like those of a lover speaking to his beloved. He says all this to Arjuna at the very end of the Bhagavad Gita, where he restates and summarizes everything that he has already taught. When Arjuna takes these words to heart, all his struggles come to an end. The inner conflict and confusion that he felt back in chapter 1 completely fade away. Why? By fixing his mind and heart on Sri Krishna, mam eva eshyasi, you will certainly reach me. That is, Arjuna will always feel Sri Krishna's loving presence, even on the battlefield, even in the midst of combat. In the same way, when your devotional feelings have grown strong after developing them with the help of Sri Krishna's teachings here, then you will always feel his loving presence on the battlefield of life, while driving on busy streets, while shopping in crowded stores, and even while dealing with impatient people and difficult situations. Sri Krishna concludes this amazing verse by saying, Satyam te pratijane, I promise this to you, I assure you, because priyaha asi me, because you are dear to me. Wow. These words still send shivers down my back. Let me end on a personal note. I was born outside the Hindu tradition and came to the teachings of Vedanta as a young, agnostic computer engineer. Yet, with the help of Sri Krishna's teachings in the Bhagavad Gita, my devotional life has grown extremely strong, and it continues to bless me. So, if these teachings are powerful enough to help me, then they're probably more than powerful enough to help you or anyone else. In the next video of this series, we'll discuss 5 essential verses from the Bhagavad Gita on the practice of karma yoga.